All right, everyone. I do this type of video once a year, right around this time of year. It's time to give my final thoughts on this season for the Alabama Crimson Tide. So this year for the Crimson Tide, they finished with a record of 9-4. The first time since 2008 that Alabama has finished with 4 losses on a season. And the first time since 2008 that Alabama has had less than 10 wins in a season. There's 2 ways to look at that. There's the pessimistic view and there's the optimistic view. First off, seeing Bama lose 4 games and not win 10, that's a sight a lot of us probably did not think we were going to see in our lifetimes again. And it's your worst season since 2008. But on the other hand, you have the optimist view that if since 2008 your worst season was 9-4, that's a pretty impressive run there. 9-4 is a down year for us. But there's plenty of Power 5 teams that have been in the basement for years that would do anything to have a 9-4 season. I think the 9-4 season has a few things as to why we did not reach where we wanted to go. A lot of it has to do with offensive line, which is probably the biggest thing we need to address in the offseason. The offensive line has been not as good really ever since pandemic, but we've had mobile quarterbacks that could camouflage it. Bryce Young was mobile enough to where he could extend the play with his legs. And Jalen Milroe, who behind that offensive line may single-handedly be the reason why Bama hasn't had less success, because Milroe could extend the play, which could camouflage the weakness of the offensive line. However, I think this year, with the way the system changed, he tended to hold on to the ball more than just releasing it early or try to extend the play with his legs and make a first down with his own legs. He tried. I don't know if it's DeBoer that tried to do this or the offensive coordinator that tried to do this, or Milroe himself tried to do this. Try to turn Milroe into more of a pocket passer than anything else. Milroe's a decent QB. He's got good accuracy. He's got a cannon for an arm. But Milroe's not the guy who's intended to throw the ball 50 times a game. He's intended to throw like 25 to 30 times at max and make some plays happen with his legs. He's not intended to go 50 times a game, throw the ball like Michael Penix was last year for Washington, which I think that's kind of why maybe Milroe in some games tried to throw 50 times a game, was because DeBoer was using what worked for him in the past with the Pac-12. The problem is the SEC isn't a drop back 50 times a game and throw the ball league like the Pac-12 was. It's a heavily run-based kind of conference. And Alabama, too, is not a, or as of now, is not a drop back 50 times and throw the ball. It's always been a heavy run team. Ever since the days of Mark Ingram Jr., then you had Trent Richardson, then you had Derrick Henry, Damian Harris, Najee Harris, Jahmyr Gibbs, and then you kind of transitioned more into an era with the running quarterback being more the star, with Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Bryce Young, Jalen Milroe. Bama's a run-heavy team. Now, over time, I do think maybe we do see Bama become more of a pass-heavy team, because that's what Kalen DeBoer's offenses have always been geared towards, is pass-heavy team. But as of now, Bama doesn't have the tools to do that. Over time, I think DeBoer brings in the tools to do that. Ty Simpson is more geared to throw the ball 50 times a game. Problem is, you have to address the O-line before you even think about putting him behind that O-line. Because Ty Simpson almost reminds me of Garrett Nussmeier, where Garrett Nussmeier, he can extend the play occasionally with his legs, but he's not a running quarterback. So I think you really have to piece together the O-line before you can think about Ty Simpson being the starting quarterback. Otherwise, Ty Simpson's going to be killed behind that O-line. Now, as for DeBoer, there's been a lot of people not happy with him. And is he 100% guilt-free in this case? I think no. I think as the head coach, you have to take responsibility for your team's weaknesses and vow to address them. But look at what the man had to deal with in his first year. Any coach who has to deal with the pressure of succeeding at the greatest of all time, like Nick Saban, there's a reason why there were coaches who turned it down because they didn't want to follow Saban. Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, Dan Lanning. There's probably a few others who turned it down too that we don't know about, like maybe Mike Norvell. Kalen DeBoer don't have the guts to even follow that act. You got to commend him. And then look at what else he had to contend with. We lost almost 50 players in the transfer portal. He could not use the main transfer portal window to address all those 50 players who left. He had to deal with adjusting from the Pac-12 to the SEC. All those changes, and yet he still leads Alabama to a 9-win regular season. I think as a coach, he's a good coach. He's proven it before. Look at what he did with Fresno State. Look at what he did with Washington. He took over much worse circumstances in Washington his first year and led them to 8 wins after Washington had 4 wins the previous year. And look what happened in year 2. He led them to a national title. And guess what? Next year is his second year at Alabama. Maybe he gets him a contender again. No, I don't expect Alabama to win a natty in 2025. I think there's too much talent at the top, like with teams like Ohio State. Texas is still gonna be good, even though they're losing we assume they're losing yours. But I do think Bama could and will be in the championship picture, in the playoff picture in 2025, depending on how the chips fall. Ty Simpson could turn out to be really good. And if he doesn't do well, then we could probably plug in Austin Mack, who knows Kalen DeBoer's system. My point being is that, yes, Alabama had a down year in 2024. But there's no reason to be pessimistic or hit the panic button or call for Kalen DeBoer to be fired just yet. Let DeBoer work his magic, as I said earlier in the year. Let DeBoer put his players and plug his players into the system. Get a transfer portal class. And in 2025, I think he will lead us to another good season and another playoff appearance. And stay tuned to Roll Tide 99, because even though Bama's season's over, we're just getting started. Got a lot of good content planned for the off season. Schedule preview videos are probably going to start coming out in March. I will be covering Alabama's basketball season, especially if we make it to the NCAA tournament like we've done the past few years. Bama baseball, if they're doing well, expect to hear about it here. Any sort of breaking news regarding college football during the offseason, expect to hear it here. We're not going anywhere just because the season is almost over. So stay tuned.